From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
We love our children, we love our animals, we take good care of them, and if they need antibiotics, that is what we have to do to take care of them.
Behind the scenes look at what the dairy industry does every day to keep us all safe.
But we're going to win. You know why? Because we always win.
The president talks trade with China, and China making changes as the trade dispute drags on.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. China making major changes due to its ongoing trade battle with the U.S. China's Feed Industry Association approving new standards for feed for pigs and chickens. It's lowering the protein levels in pig feed by 1.5 percentage points and for chickens by 1 percentage point. The government says these new standards would lower China's annual soybean consumption by 14 million metric tons. That's a drop of around 13% from last year. Now, the change is expected to lower China's soy meal consumption from 71 million metric tons to around 60 million metric tons. The ministry did not say when the new standards would take effect. Tariffs on soybeans could mean more producers will be switching to corn next year. This year, farmers planting more soybeans than corn for the first time in more than 3 decades, assuming it would be in high demand. But those Chinese tariffs are causing big problems, leading to lower exports and lower prices. Now some analysts are saying farmers could convert as much as 4 million acres from soybeans to corn next spring. That would be roughly equal the size of Connecticut. Many farmers say those crop choices might not be made until just weeks or even days before planting gets underway next spring, partially due to the uncertainty around those tariffs. President Trump says he expects the trade dispute with China will end, but says it will take a while. He addressed the trade issue while speaking at the National FFA convention over the weekend.
It'll all work out between China and the United States. It's, you know, they've been doing very well against us for 25, 30 years. They've been doing beyond well. Taking out $500 billion a year out of the United States. Would you say that's a lot? That's a lot of corn. That's a lot of wheat. That's a lot of soybeans. Can't do that. I said you can't do that. So we're in a trade dispute. I want to use that word because it's a nice soft word. But we're going to win. You know why? Because we always win.
President Trump says he has had a good conversation with Brazil's new far-right president-elect. He says the two will be working together on trade and the military. The president tweeting Monday that he congratulated Jair Bolsonaro on this weekend's victory in Brazil's election. He tweeted, quote, "We agreed that Brazil and the United States will work closely together on trade, military, and everything else," end quote. Bolsonaro says he promised to defend Brazil's constitution and unite people following a bitter campaign. He also promised to roll back environmental regulations for agriculture. New crop progress numbers from the USDA show 63% of the corn crop is in right on par with the 5-year average. Now there's still work to do in Iowa, where 49% of fields are harvested, and in South Dakota and Nebraska. For soybeans, 72% of the crop in the 18 states surveyed now harvested. That's 9% less than the 5-year average. Kansas, right now only at 42%, where it normally would be 70%. In winter wheat planting, it's well underway, but still behind. Kansas, 76% planted, about 13 points behind the 5-year average. Oklahoma at 78%, 10% less than usual. For rice farmers in South Texas, it's a grueling harvest. Only 1 year after Hurricane Harvey hit, unforgiving rains are keeping some area farmers out of the field, and farmers able to harvest have the scars in the field to show it. This is a common sight across South Texas. Ruts in the field show just how difficult 2018 harvest is this year. The U.S. Department of Ag's latest crop progress report showing rice harvest in Texas is complete. However, area farmers are reporting a different story. Kerry Abney is an organic rice farmer just outside Beaumont, Texas. He says on his farm, rice harvest is only half complete.
Usually after a rain, a good day, you can start cutting again. But we might get one day and it's raining the next. So we've been plagued with rain. It's almost November and we should be through.
Organic rice is a later season rice. He says it's worth the extra effort to grow as it pays double what conventional rice contracts pay. We're starting to get in a few more of your pictures from harvest, and some folks are finding some pretty clever ways to show us what they're up to. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen has more in today's Crop Comments.
Thanks, Clinton. Well, how do you know when it's harvest season? This might be a good indicator. These photos were shared on Twitter by Randy Ermacher in Hastings, Nebraska. Does this happen to you? If you look closely, you can see some little kernels on the floor there. Randy says that you can follow the trail around the house to see where he's been. I'm sure that's a familiar sight for a lot of you out there. Let's take a look at the wind forecast as we head through the day. Today, we're going to be seeing some windy conditions, and especially the plain states over towards Kansas, western Kansas, south central Kansas. You might see some winds gusting to 25 miles per hour in spots. And heading through the day, you see some of those winds even spreading into parts of the eastern Corn Belt, a lot of the Gulf Coast states, and even into the southwest as well. Overnight, we see a lot of that slacking off, other than around a front that's over in the Tennessee and Ohio valleys, and of course down into the southwestern United States as well. But through the day on Wednesday, we see those pick up, especially in the northwest and in the south central parts of the United States. I'll have your national forecast coming up, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com. The National Dairy Farm Program strives to create a culture of continuous improvement for the entire dairy industry. For more information, visit nationaldairyfarm.com.
Many people wonder if there are antibiotics in their food. Two dairy groups are trying to promote the sensible use of antibiotics while they make sure residues stay out of the milk supply. Betsy Gibbon has a look at a nationwide program within the dairy industry that's helping to keep you safe.
There are a lot of moving parts on Pagel's Ponderosa Dairy to keep the operation that's been around over 70 years running successfully.
Here we are today, milking 5,300 cows at this facility, running 2 other sites.
The 3 of us that are involved in the dairy, me and my 2 brothers, are running the dairy together and working very well together, which really helps.
Yet to keep a reputation as one of Wisconsin's most successful dairies, the Pagel kids know the prestige relies on standards they strive to uphold every day.
I oversee the animals for the dairy and then the people who take care of the animals for the dairy.
Along with veterinarians, herd managers like Chris make decisions if an animal becomes sick, how to take care of it.
We look at the treatment on a per animal basis. So we're going to evaluate the cow and see what type of attention she needs. And then we'll go ahead and diagnose her and find out what we can do to try to help her.
That's why the National Milk Producers Federation, with support from Dairy Management Incorporated, created the Farm Animal Care Program Standards. One pillar helps producers and their vets make decisions on determining a judicious use of antibiotics when and if a cow needs it.
Judicious is simply using the products the way that they were intended and when we need them, and not using them when we don't need them.
Yet some consumers have reservations antibiotics could linger in the food supply.
If milk does test positive for an antibiotic residue anywhere along the chain, that milk can no longer enter the supply and it cannot be sold to you as a consumer.
Jonker says every load of milk in the U.S. is tested for antibiotic residue when it reaches the plant or processor. There are also a series of tests before milk hits grocery store shelves.
And there hasn't been a single positive residue of antibiotics in those end product testing since 2011. And all milk goes through this testing.
The Pagels do their own sample testing before milk leaves the dairy and is tested again.
The milk gets checked every day on the dairy, so every load of milk.
They also have a computered ID system with the life history of each animal, so employees and vets are aware of every health event.
That's a red flag for us that we're not able to.
All operations in the program need to have a system. For some, that's marking sick cows with leg bands, paint, or separating animals into different pens. The Pagels have a separate parlor, similar to a hospital wing, where cows who receive treatment go to be milked. They wear different colored leg bands, indicating the need for different types of treatment. Sometimes the treatment is without any antibiotics.
We've elected not to treat her with antibiotics because our physical exam told us that she's likely to get better without.
The Pagels also use a color-coded system. Blue and over indicates the milk is being diverted into a separate tank, which will never enter the food chain.
And that tells them that the tank has been diverted and that they're safe to milk those cows.
The managers take different types of samples to see if an animal needs treatment, more treatment, or if it's safe to return to the main parlor to produce saleable milk. That's why this dairy, which has been growing for generations, is continuing to take care of its animals using the best systems they can find.
We love our children, we love our animals, we take good care of them, and if they need antibiotics, that is what we have to do to take care of them.
All with the mission of staying in business another 7 decades. Reporting in Kewaunee, Wisconsin, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
It's been a better year for wheat exports, but is that showing up in the markets? We'll have some analysis coming up next. And later, putting fine wine under the microscope and in the bright lights in the country. In agribusiness, not a great start to the week for markets. Here's more now from the floor of the CME.
Today's soybeans were mixed. The fourth quarter demand is weak, and that's kind of pressing the market a little bit lower. We're closing in on the end of the year, and we're really exposing what harm the tariffs have done on these markets. Right now, it's high season for China, where they normally would buy their biggest purchases in soybeans, and we know that that's going to be going to Brazil. So it's hurting our farmers a lot, actually. And I'd see that's why a little bit that the market is starting to sag. When there's no news in it, we see it start to sink a little bit like down there. And I think that, the new president in Brazil has rallied the real. So that may put a little bit of a stall in some of those, in some of the trade back and forth with Brazil and China.
Wheat markets continue to fight for higher prices. Tyne Morgan has more. Today's analysis from the road.
Here now with Jared Creed. Jared, when we look at wheat exports, they've been pretty impressive this year. Does it surprise you, and is that impacting the market at all right now?
Wheat exports have certainly led the way the last few weeks, but outside of that, I don't know if there's a heck of a lot of a story to look at for U.S. wheat exports. We're still being dominated by the rest of the world, specifically Russia and Ukraine part of the world. Australia had a little bit of a production problem. If you look back, this might have been the actual calendar year that we didn't have a record wheat crop in some continent in the last 5-10 years. I can't support that stat, but it just kind of came to mind there. Really, the bigger story to maybe watch for U.S. wheat at the moment is in kind of relation to acres for next year. We had a big anticipation to see an increase of 2 to 3 million acres of wheat in the U.S., primarily driven by HRW, hard red winter wheat. The weather in the Central Plains, specifically Kansas, has been very, very detrimental to that process. I'm pretty sure there's significant pieces in Kansas that the month of October has already registered 400 to 500% above normal precipitation. November 1 is really a start of a stopping point for plenty of producers on planting next year's wheat.
So you think the harvest weather, the weather that we've seen this fall, will actually impede some producers, like in states like Kansas, from planting wheat this year?
It maybe puts a little bit of a wet blanket over the anticipation of that big of a wheat increase area. You still have the wild card in the North and South Dakota and North Dakota and Montana for spring wheat area increase. But perhaps we've kind of put a damper on the idea that we're going to take a couple million acres out of corn and soybeans and wheat.
When do you think that hits the market? When do you think prices realize this?
Well, it doesn't have to really realize it on the wheat front because we just have too much wheat in the world, period. And we're not competitive as it is. You still have commercials being incented to store the wheat. Makes more money storing the wheat than it actually does to put it on a boat and ship it somewhere. So we're not competitive in any way to export that wheat to importing countries at this point. So maybe on a price perspective, it has a little bit of an impact into corn and soybean area, but we might not really see any glimpse of that until the January acreage report.
All right, Jared Creed, thank you so much for joining us. Let's take a quick break right here on Ag Day, and then we'll have a check of weather.
To contact Jared at JC Marketing Services, call 402-680-1744 or send him an email at creedjaredm@outlook.com. Ag Day, brought to you by new Delaro fungicide for corn and soybeans. Achieve personal best yields.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Our meteorologist Cindy Clausen looking at the weather map. And Cindy, we keep trying to figure out what to expect. What should we expect this week?
Well, I think for a lot of us, it's going to be kind of continued the same.
Okay.
It's been kind of cool in the eastern part of the country, and unfortunately, we're going to have a little bit more rain in some of the areas that don't need any more rain. And you'll notice that we start off somewhat on the dry side, but we're going to be watching this nation's midsection front that's going to be starting to really pick up some moisture as we head through the latter part of the day. So here's 7 o'clock tonight. On the far northern fringe of that upper Great Lakes, you might have some snow there. Otherwise, we're going to see some showers and even some thunderstorms along that front. Notice we've got some rain, upper elevation snow in parts of the Four Corners region, but it's going to be fairly dry in the southeastern United States. As we head into the overnight hours, the front moves to the east. We pick up even more moisture there, so that's going to be for a lot of the eastern Corn Belt trailing back into the Ohio Valley, even down to the Tennessee Valley and down into the south central United States. Fair amount of snow expected in parts of the southern Rockies as well. And through the day on Wednesday, here comes that front back down into Texas, and that's some of the areas that have been seeing a lot of rain. We've got a little bit of a break, but we're going to be seeing more of that there. Another system approaches and brings some more rain and upper elevation snow to the Pacific Northwest. So the precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours, it really hasn't been a ton, and most of it focused along the northern tier of the United States. But let's add on the next 24 hours. You can really pick out where that front is, moving right on from the Great Lakes down into the south central United States. And some of that rain could be on the heavy side, especially as you get over towards Kentucky, down into Arkansas and southeastern Oklahoma. As far as temperatures are concerned, we have the warmer temperatures of Florida and along the western Gulf Coast states, but notice how cool it is. We're still dealing with a lot of 50s and 40s into the northwest. A little warmer for today in parts of the east, but that's not going to last too long. Don't get used to the 60s that you're seeing over towards Chicago, because as we head into tomorrow, things will be a little bit cooler for us again on the backside of that front. Back down into the 30s for a lot of the northern plains and into the Rockies, and we are seeing some 40s starting to get into the parts of the mid-Atlantic states as well. For highs tomorrow, we're back into the 50s in a lot of the Great Lakes area and still some 40s there. The warm weather still stays right around the Gulf Coast states. Jet stream, we've been watching this trough. We're going to be seeing that move through the week as we get into our Thursday, Friday. See how deep that gets with a little ridge in the west. It becomes more zonal a little bit as we get towards the weekend and into the early part of next week. That's your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Craigmont, Idaho, mostly cloudy with showers possible for you today and a high of 46 degrees. Plankinton, South Dakota, mostly sunny, a little cooler with highs in the upper 50s. Plenty of sunshine in Lewisburg, North Carolina.
How hard is dairy being impacted by tariffs, and what could the future hold? What a new study says about that future next. And later, taking a deeper look at the bottle of wine thanks to some bright technology. Just how big of an impact could trade tariffs have on the dairy industry? A Texas A&M study has been looking at the numbers. The study says a 25% tariff enacted by China on U.S. dairy products resulted in a 42% drop in exports to the country during July and August. Researchers ran the numbers on a couple of scenarios. In one, the study estimates $129 million in U.S. dairy exports would be lost. Another assumes all dairy exports would be lost, and that would be an estimated $798 million per year loss. A Canadian dairy company, Saputo, is buying 2 American cheese plants. It's seen as an effort to expand the company's footprint here in the U.S. It's buying F&A Dairy Products, which has a plant in New Mexico and another in Wisconsin. F&A makes several natural cheeses, including mozzarella and provolone. Both plants employ about 170 people. They were purchased for $85 million. Now, Saputo is the 8th largest dairy processor in the world. Fine wine is about much more than taste testing. How a box is shedding more light on how it's made, right down to the type of grapes. Next in the country.
In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M7060, built to get the job done. See KubotaUSA.com or your local Kubota dealer for more information.
Experts usually use aroma, flavor, and color to identify a wine, but now there's a device that can tell us much more about its history. Check out this light box. It can help people see deeper into a wine and analyze it. Now, the creators say the box can be useful to identify which type of grape the wine came from, how old it is, even the production methods used. It works the same way that doctors use an X-ray. A wine glass is placed on it and lit up by a powerful white light. While taste and smell are still important, the light box adds a whole new level to looking at wine. The portable box was designed primarily for red wines, but it's also being tested with olive oil. It sells for about $280 and is made in Madrid. There you have it. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.